So you need a lot of sap because you're trying to build lights, or you're trying to build bandages. You're trying to build just about anything in Grounded. But you can't get it all. You can't find it. You're tired of smashing those sap clumps all over the place. There's got to be an easier way. And that's why I made this video, to show you there is. There is an easier way. With the sap catchers on the tree roots like that, I have really tall towers in my backyard, and I was on top of one of the towers, and when you look down at the tree roots from the top of my tower where I have all the sap collectors, it kind of makes it look like they're the suction cups on an octopus tentacle.
Whoa, I'm not just small, I'm tiny. This is freaking awesome!
What up? It's Tiny Pirate Gaming, and it's another tutorial video. And in this video, I'm going to be covering how you're supposed to use the sap catcher. Now, if you're a new player in Grounded, you might not really understand how to use the sap catcher properly because it's really not very well explained. And unless you've seen how it's supposed to work, you really won't be able to figure it out on your own because the game only gives you a very limited location where you can place the sap catcher. If you're wondering where the sap catcher is supposed to be placed, it's supposed to be placed on parts of the oak tree. So there's the roots of the oak tree, there's the fallen branch from the oak tree, and then there's little twigs all over the backyard where you can sometimes attach it to those twigs that produce the sap. So if you come across a twig that has little sap clumps on it, well, that is a twig that you can attach a sap catcher to, but it's gonna be tricky to find a spot to place it. So, which is why I recommend the best place to put them is around the oak tree on the roots. Now, I learned this method. I learned this secret technique for placing sap catchers from another Grounded YouTuber who you might have heard of. I'm sure you have. If you have heard of him, let me know in the comment. And that is RooDaaR. I will put a link to his channel in the description. And you can go check him out. He is another Grounded YouTuber. And I'm sure if you're watching my videos, you've already seen his. But I learned from him how to use the sap catcher by watching how he uses his, and I said, that's how you're supposed to do it. And I also see a lot of people asking questions in the Discord and in other videos, leaving comments about how to use the sap catcher, what's the sap catcher for. So I made a video to detail everything going on with the sap catcher in the game right now. So in order to build the sap catcher, you will need one acorn top, which you can acquire by smashing acorns around the oak tree, and you will need one ant mandible. The ant mandible is obtained by bashing a soldier ant. You got to bash a soldier ant, and it'll drop an ant mandible for you. So it's bashing time. Get out there, start bashing if you need ant mandibles. The sap catcher, which some people refer to as the sap collector, which is actually a more accurate name, I believe, works best on the roots around the oak tree. As I mentioned earlier, that is probably the best place to put it. And I was streaming the other night over on Twitch. That's where I stream. And one of my viewers, he noticed that with the sap catchers on the tree roots like that, I have really tall towers in my backyard, and I was on top of one of the towers, and when you look down at the tree roots from the top of my tower where I have all the sap collectors, it kind of makes it look like they're the suction cups on an octopus tentacle, which is really weird. But I was like, wow, you're right. I never really noticed that, but that is exactly what they look like. Anyway, you place them. You can also place them on the fallen branch, as I mentioned, and this, between the fallen branch and the oak tree roots itself, I would say is probably the most efficient place to do this because the sap collector only produces, or the sap catcher, whatever you want to call it, only produces one sap per harvest. So it only makes one little sap bubble, and you get to take it, and then you got to wait, and it produces another one, which is why you really got to build a lot of these things for them to be efficiently an avenue to harvest sap for you. Otherwise, it's just as fast to go around bashing all the sap clumps. But if you want to add to your harvest, you can place these things all over the place, and that's what I've begun doing. I've placed them all over the tree roots around the tree so that I can always, whenever I go over there to collect sap, I am coming back with as much possible sap as I can harvest each trip. The sap collector takes about 1 to 2 in-game days, depending on when you harvest it. before, ultimately an in-game 48 hours. I don't know what the real-world equivalent for that would be, but the in-game 48 hours is about how long it takes for your sap collectors to resupply, and then you can go back and collect the sap again and harvest your sap. But really, this is a very short and easy tutorial. That's how you use the sap collectors. Just put them on parts of the tree. Anything that produces sap that you can stick this to will work. Now, I experienced some issues with the sap collector, one being that it only produces one sap. The other being that if you try to jump on top of the sap collector, it looks like you should just be able to stand inside of it and just walk over top of it. Use it as flooring almost. But you can't. There's an invisible barrier over the top of the sap collector, which implies to me that they're planning to add more texturing and layering into the sap collector, which means hopefully at some point it will produce more than one sap. In which case, if you've done what I did and built these things all over the place, well then come time they fix the sap collectors, you're going to be golden. You'll be golden on sap. You won't ever have to worry about it again. But anyway, I hope this helped you out if you were trying to figure out how to use the sap catcher in Grounded. And if it did, well, you can help me out by smashing that like button. It really helps me out, and I really appreciate it when you do that. And let me know in the comments if it helped you out. And if you want to see more Grounded-themed, Grounded-related content, whether it's tutorial-based, whether it's pure entertainment-based, or if you want to watch me live stream some Grounded, well, I do that on Twitch sometimes, but I don't have a set schedule with it yet. I'm working on that, working on figuring out how I could fit it into my already existing schedule. But I do stream randomly, like when I get the time to. I will do a live stream on Twitch, and you can follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/TinyPirateGaming. And I also announce when I'm going to live stream on the Grounded Discord under their streaming tab in the streaming channel. And I announce it on my Twitter page. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, well, I'm at Twitter at TinyPirateGamer. So you can follow me there, and that's where I announce, hey, I have some spare time. I'm gonna stream for the next 3 hours, maybe longer if people show up. Stuff like that. And you'll get notified on the Twitter that I'm gonna do a live stream. So if you're interested in any of that, well, you should also consider subscribing to the channel, because this is really my main source of content creation. It's where I put out most of my content, and it's where I put out my Grounded tutorials and any Grounded discussion stuff that I'm covering, or Grounded news, anything I come across that I think is interesting. Sometimes it's not even Grounded stuff. Sometimes it's just something going on in the world that I think is really interesting, like the new Godzilla vs. Kong movie. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and until next time.
Arg, matey, watch your step. There be a tiny pirate here.